Hello and welcome to What the Tech from Boast AI, where we talk with some of the brilliant minds behind new and exciting tech initiatives to learn what it takes to tackle technological uncertainty and eventually change the world. Today I'm thrilled to welcome Faisal Khan, founder and CEO of FMRK Diagnostic Technologies. At FMRK, Faisal and his team are developing a rapid urinary tract infection antibiotic susceptibility test.
Hey man, I wrote it and this is my company, so don't even worry about it.
All right, we're going to take it from... Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Faisal Khan, founder and CEO of FMRK Diagnostic Technologies. At FMRK, Faisal and his team are developing a rapid urinary tract infection antibiotic susceptibility test for the elderly and people with spinal cord injuries. Their technology is rooted in decentralized diagnostic testing solutions, making medical diagnostics easy to use, quick, and reliable. Their first-of-a-kind near-patient antibiotic susceptibility testing device was designed exclusively for community healthcare settings, deriving results in 6 hours or less and making the entire process faster than traditional methods. So, along with driving incredible diagnostic innovation, Faisal is also a member of the GetFresh Ventures community and has been making his mark in the BC tech and startup ecosystem. I'm excited to pick his brain on what's next for FMRK, hear about his path as an entrepreneur, and learn what's in store for the rest of 2024. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Faisal.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul, and thank you to Boast AI for presenting this.
Absolutely. We love having founders like yourself on the show. I'd love to know, how did you get into the startup space to begin with? What are some of your passions, and how did you get to FMRK?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with how I got into this space, because I think that'll help a little bit better. I got into the space around 2019. I had been accepted into law school, and I was looking for a way to turn $250,000 for the 3 years of law school. I wanted to find a way to offset that cost because that's a lot of student loan debt. And I came across licensing. If I have a background in molecular biology and biochemistry, if I create something, license it, even for $30,000 a year over the 3 years, that's close to $100,000. That's a nice chunk out of it. And so that's what it was. And so it was in 2019. I was looking around for something. This was pre-pandemic, and I looked at telehealth, and I thought, you know what, that might be a good wave to ride. I noticed that the problem was there was no quantitative data, right? It's really just a physician looking at you going, yeah, I think you've got this. And so what I really wanted to do was a point-of-care complete blood count test, a CBC test. And a CBC test includes a white blood cell differential, and that differential can tell you if your infection is bacterial, viral, an allergy, or a parasite. And what it could really do is inform doctors about whether or not to prescribe antibiotics for you. Antibiotic resistance is a really big passion of mine. And so being able to create something to give them that data and to help physicians realize, okay, it's a viral infection, probably the common cold, you don't need antibiotics, was something I was really passionate about. And so that's where it started. The blood testing thing didn't really work out, but I was still passionate about the idea of antibiotic resistance and wanting to combat it, and unnecessary antibiotic prescriptions are a big part of it. With the team that I was working with, Lorenzo and Justin, we kind of put our heads together. We were all sort of failed founders in that we had tried in the decentralized health space and it all failed. And so then we came together, pooled our learnings, and this is what we came up with. We realized UTIs are a major issue. They affect over 1 million Canadians go to doctors for UTIs every year. A huge problem with the elderly, which is a big population that's booming. And we realized that this is a place where we could make an impact and a difference. So
I also really want to call back to that point you made that this was pre-pandemic when the seed was planted. You were looking at telehealth as a growth sector even before the whole world started getting intimately involved with telehealth and the limitations therein, which I'm glad that you really highlighted. The old way of doing it really was, even from my personal experience, well, it's okay. You know, the little bit of that Larry David sound comes out of your doctor every time that they turn on their Zoom and are investigating you. So I love that you dove into the science. You saw the opportunity as a founder. I also love that you said that you and your founding team were all Phil founders of some variety. That's a good thing, especially something that I've learned in all of these conversations that I've had, something that even Daraj from GetFresh has let me know is great. You need battle scars if you're going to succeed as a founder in the entrepreneur space. No first-time founders, even if they think on paper this is their first business entrepreneur, they failed in some capacity previously, and they brought those lessons to actually execute on that success. So that's a good thing. That means that you guys are passionate and you're not giving up and you're really digging into the problems and solutions. Now, I'd love to know, what sets FMRK apart from others in the market. Could you tell me a little bit about those unique differentiators?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll notice there's a lot of competitors, and actually there's I think it's Cellix DX that's based there in Boston.
I was gonna say.
And they are all designing for the central lab, right? I'm not advocating for eliminating the central lab. I think the central lab will always need to be there. But I think of the central lab a lot like a car dealership, right? You don't need to take your car in if you just want to put air in your tire, if you just want to get an oil change. There are a lot of simple things that you can do on your car at home. And so I think there are a number of diagnostic tests that don't require that central lab to do. That's really what we're designing for. We're looking to design for the community setting. So we need something that's highly automated. It can be used by laypersons, people who aren't skilled in the art of clinical laboratory sciences. It needs to be compact and portable, right? Space is always a factor no matter where you go. And so for community clinics, pharmacies, doctors, mobile clinics, space is a premium. So ours has to be compact, portable, easy to use, all those sorts of things. And so that's really what kind of sets us apart here. Right now in the space, you really only have a dipstick, and that's about 30 to 50% accurate.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. And again, I come from the world of network performance monitoring actually in a past life. So when you were mentioning decentralization, that immediately clicked with me just because I was thinking about enterprise decentralization. But even in the healthcare setting, what you're talking about, there's so much more that can be done too by those non-doctors in the field that you were mentioning, like enabling people to effectively diagnose, but not have to turn to WebMD and maybe go down the wrong path and make the wrong assumptions. You're giving them the informed tools to make those right decisions and to actually understand what's happening. Another point that you made earlier too was the elderly community. It's a growing community. It's a growing market. It sounds weird to be like, hey, well, we're not making new elderly people, but no, we're all aging. So I really love that you guys latched onto that opportunity, but also that support. I think it's really something that beyond the market that's growing, we're all going to be faced with these issues down the line. So we want to make sure that we have the solutions there for us to at least understand how we can start our path to remedying the problem when we reach that point in our lives. I'd love to know, could you tell me about some of the unique R&D that has gone into building the solution?
Yeah, we don't have unique R&D in like the idea that, it was from a university lab and there's a major breakthrough and, that's what we're commercializing. Our R&D it's more like we put existing technologies, validated technologies together. And that's really where it's coming from. So if you think about the iPhone, right? When the iPhone was first introduced, you already had telephones, computers, and music players. But what Apple did is they put it all together in a nice, compact, easy to use space. And that's really what we're doing with microfluidics, computer vision, machine learning, and a couple of other technologies is we're teaching them how to communicate with one another, interact together, and to make something that is functional and easy to use.
Love it. No, and the thing is, I wouldn't belittle that as not innovative in any way. I think that's really cool. And also, it's kind of the opportunity for a lot of founders today because merging these existing technologies, we were talking to a hardware manufacturer who they were trying to explain the hardware is not new, but the software behind it is. Because we're pulling data from areas that we weren't able to access in the past. And so that's informing how this hardware actually acts. And that's fundamentally changing the use case. That's fundamentally changing how effective it is in the field. It's all about identifying, hey, you maybe not reinvented the wheel, but you're having the wheel do something completely different, or you're having the wheel do something net new, or solve a problem that hasn't been put to use in that way to solve. And from what you just told me, that's exactly what you guys are doing today. And I also really appreciate that you used the iPhone analogy because that made it peanut butter and jelly for me. I do understand and can visualize what you're doing with that. Now, I'd love to know, tell me about some of the community partners or even just like support systems you leveraged to help bring FMRK to the place where you're at. Tell me how you brought your team together and the other resources that you've used to build this.
Yeah, man, there's been plenty of them. And, one thing that has to give credit is Shred in Canada and the ability to leverage that tax credit, hugely beneficial. And so I really appreciate that. We were part of the Life Sciences BC Investor Readiness Program back in 2024. We just graduated from the Praxis Spinal Cord Institute's incubator program. We were part of the Spring Healthcare Impact Challenge. I've been a part of Yeti, which was actually a incubator out in Toronto, in New York.
I love Yeti, Elizabeth.
Yes, Elizabeth Docking. Yeti was one of the first that accepted me, and that was a huge boost to have people be like, yeah, we selected your idea from so many others, and to bring it in, that was a huge boost of confidence. And from each and every one of these, we've been able to get something else. Whether we were at the Investor Readiness Program, I was partnered with Norma Sebastian. She was my mentor. She was fantastic. Praxis was able to give us about 20,000 in grant funding, which was hugely instrumental in helping propel our research and development forward, developing the microfluidic chip, to validating some of the technologies that we were using in this use case. We've got to have a shout to IRAP. My ITA, Alexi Dodkeen, huge help. And all of it, like it's taken a community for sure. No entrepreneur is alone and does it alone. And we've been very fortunate to have been part of some terrific programs.
And honestly, you put words in my mouth almost in terms of identifying how you can leverage the many programs to maximize what you want to do. IRAP, if you have the good idea, apply for the grants, get that innovation started, get the money you need to start building your product. Then once you're in process of doing all that, and once you're actively investing in the R&D, that's when Shred comes in. That's when it becomes powerful. But even beyond that too, you got to have a diverse capital strategy. You got to leverage members of the community. You got to find some angels who are going to support you in the back. And that's so cool. And I'm just so happy that we didn't even plan it. You're from Yeti. I'm like, you're out of that team. We love them. I was like, Elizabeth is probably annoyed by me at this point because I go up and give her a big hug when I see her at Collision. And I know you know her. She's a hugger, but not as excited as I am. It takes a village to raise a kid, takes a community to build a business. But it does all start with that great idea and that integrity to really dive in and try it. So that is really cool. I'd love to know what's in store for the rest of 2024 for you and the rest of the team at FMRK.
Yeah, so the rest we'll be presenting at the Vantech Angel Network come October 2nd, and then we'll be presenting at the Invest in BC conference October 29th and 30th. We've also partnered with the University of British Columbia, actually the School of Biomedical Engineering. And so they're actually going to help develop our MVP. We got about 4 fourth-year biomedical engineering students giving their ideas and solutions and creating our MVP for us under our guidance. And in the meantime, we're just looking to connect with stakeholders and shareholders, especially in the pharmacies, and get some LOIs, lay the foundation for paid pilots in the future. And lastly, we'll be working with a health economist come September to really try and make the case to the different provincial governments and the different health authorities that not only can we deliver the value of the healthcare that you want, the quality that you want, but we can do it at a lower cost. And we can save you guys money not only in the short term, but over the long run as well.
So I've never heard of health economists before. What is that exactly?
I had never heard of one before either. My mentor, Norma, at the Investment Readiness Program mentioned that there was this health institute in Alberta, and that's what they did. They were economists who specialized in healthcare, and all they did was take a look at the cost benefits of different proposals, different strategies, all these kinds of things, like any economist, just focused on healthcare. And they made recommendations to the Alberta government about what to adopt and not to adopt based on the proposed savings or expenses that they calculated. And so we were able to access one in BC. We're going to be doing the same thing, making that case to do it. Don't feel bad if you haven't heard of a health economist. I hadn't heard of it either until recently, but they're very useful people, especially if you're dealing with government reimbursements, because you need somebody who has the authority to sort of make that case for you that currently you're spending this much. This is how much you can be saving. Multiply that by this approximate number of people that you're going to have doing it. And this is what your picture looks like. Math, that's definitely beyond me.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm not a math guy over here. I mean, we work for Boast. It's all numbers, but it's money. That's what I see. Yep. That is so cool. And again, it's a validation too. I think that's something that I've said it before on the show, but even just like getting your IRAP grants, even getting those shred tax credits, having a health economist vouch for you, that's all validation. That's all showing that, hey, if the government wants to invest in your research, and then after you've even gotten going on it, they want to help you recoup to keep doing more of it, you're doing something right. So that's why I think it's good to leverage all of those sources, leverage all those opportunities. So glad I heard about what a health economist is now too. I'm going to Google after this to see what we have as an equivalency in the States. But now, before I digress too much too, FMRK, what does it mean? Is that your name? Is that initials? What could you unpack the name of it for me?
They are my initials. I have 2 middle names. There's a long tradition in both science and industry of people naming things and companies after themselves. Hewlett Packard, Harley Davidson, even the Bunsen burner, the Petri dish. Yep. And yeah, I think I kind of wanted to follow in that tradition. I'm really super proud of this, and I kind of want this to be something I have an impact, bit of a legacy for me. but also because I knew it wouldn't be copied. And when I first had to come up with a name, I'm like, anything that's kind of sciencey, there's going to be 3 or 4 other companies because it's just in the general domain. How many people are going to have my 4 initials? Probably really unlikely. I was actually wrong on that. It actually also the acronym for fashion marketing at the Kwantlen Polytechnic University, which caused confusion for one person only, but I think I've differentiated myself well enough not to be confused with fashion marketing. But yeah, it worked. I am really proud of this product and what we're developing here. And I think putting my name on it was not necessarily an act of ego, but more an act of, this is my legacy to my impact to benefit to humanity.
No, I love it. I immediately thought, actually, when you said that, I was thinking, again, I'm here in Massachusetts, Philip Reagan, and he in the Reagan Institute here at Mass General and MIT and Harvard. Again, swimming in the same ecosystem, I feel like, in terms of just biotech and healthcare and things like that. But he doesn't have a huge ego, but he's building some really cool looking buildings with his name on it here in Boston. And I don't think it's an ego thing at all. The amazing innovation that they're driving out, it's establishing his legacy. And again, it's rooted in driving real solutions. So I love it. What's some sage wisdom that you would give to other potential would-be founders or people who want to get started or who maybe have an idea and want to pursue the entrepreneurship path today in 2024?
Yeah, my biggest recommendation is not to worry about the investment. And I know that as entrepreneurs, it's really easy. You're like, oh man, I want to get hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. It's really good to be reminded that doesn't actually help. If you look at Zoom, they raised $500 million. They still shuttered. You look at Cameo, the app, it can't even pay a $600,000 fine anymore, even though it raised a $100 million Series Seed round. Don't focus on the money. Instead, do the things that are really cheap, but actually really impactful, which is focus on your value proposition, your differentiation, and the customer journey, right? And all those 3 things, they don't take, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to do. They take some legwork, some research, definitely some sweat equity, and they require getting out to people. And honestly, those 3 things are really going to set you apart because at the end of the day, Zoom is a great example of this. If you don't know what you're doing or what value you're creating, no amount of money is going to make you successful. That information actually was from a guy named Jeff Auchinleck. He's the CEO of Claris Health, and he was a big name. And I was really humbled that he actually talked to me when I was first starting out. He's really one of my first mentors. And he asked me, who's going to use your product? And I said, emergency rooms. Obviously, it's a rapid diagnostic. It's an emergency room. No brainer. And he goes, how do you know that? And I'm like, it's just obvious. And he's like, but have you talked to anybody? And I'm like, no, but it's kind of obvious. And he goes, no, it's not. Go talk to them. And so I did. I lined up meetings with ER nurses and doctors on both sides of the 49th. And they all had the same response, which was great, except that response was meh. Because for a UTI, their turnaround time in emergency rooms is 4.5 hours. So any test that takes more than 4.5 hours, they don't care. They couldn't care less about it. And we have a 6-hour turnaround time, which is way better than the 24 to 48-hour turnaround, but still not enough for them. And so they didn't want it. And I was like, so I came back to Jeff and I was like, okay. So I was about to build a product for people who did not want it at all. And by just taking some time and talking to them, I saved myself thousands in R&D cost and in going the wrong direction. And it really forced me to go and talk to people to come up and validate this. And so for you founders out there, please, value proposition, differentiation, and customer journey, just go talk to people. It's cheap. It's easy. You'd be amazed how many people will be willing to talk to you about these things. And, there are programs and things that are designed to connect entrepreneurs with these professionals so they can have these conversations and build things that are going to be beneficial for them. That was one of the most amazing things about the Praxis Spinal Cord Institute Incubator Program is it connected us with people who had spinal cord injuries. So people who are living with these injuries. And since our product is, of value to them, they had a chance to give us some input and, make some design changes and adjustments that we now know when we go to market is going to benefit this entire community that is often overlooked. And there's honestly nothing more rewarding than knowing that you are building a product that meets the needs of these people and that they're going to use and they're excited about.
I love it. It's part of your R&D too. I mean, again, that's doing the market research right there. But even beyond it too, you've built a more effective solution that's going to save people from going from the ER, ideally in some of these scenarios. So you've actually delivered so much more value because, again, you did the free thing. You went and you talked to those people before you went ahead and started building that ER-based solution. Faisal, that is awesome. Value prop, differentiation, and customer journey. Founders in the audience, that's really the key to it. That is fantastic. Faisal, I cannot thank you enough for hopping on the mic. This was an absolute pleasure.